Hey, I'm Randy, and you're watching The Cheap Audio Man. Here at The Cheap Audio Man, we talk about high-value headphones, home theater, hi-fi equipment, just about anything that makes music. And today, we're talking about the Moukey passive speaker. I don't even think this thing has a... Oh my. I don't even think this thing has a model number. Just the Moukey passive speaker. So sit down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk about the Moukey passive speaker, $65. The Moukey, they are currently $70 on Amazon, but there's a $5 coupon, so that's $65. They're a two-way bookshelf speaker. Let me grab it. I can almost pick it. I can't pick it up with one hand, barely. Okay. Two-way bookshelf speaker, 1-inch soft dome tweeter, 5-inch, 5 1/4-inch woofer. Front ported. This is a blatant ripoff of one of my favorite speakers of all time. Just kidding. The Polk T15. Blatant ripoff. So let's talk about some specifications. Specification? Per the Amazon listing, they're rated down to 20 hertz. Up to 20K. In no universe do these hit 20 hertz on the bottom end. Frankly, they start rolling off around 60, a little bit below 60, maybe 55, which is fine for a speaker of this size. The Polk T15 is rated down to 60 hertz. So it's starting to roll off around 60, which is fine. It's small. It's a small speaker. On the back, there's a keyhole mount if you want to mount it to the wall. And on the bottom, there's 4 rubber feet. You don't even have to go buy them. They're already installed. It has a grill, and on the front, it's got a little cutout, which is a little bit rough. A little bit rough how they cut it out. Okay. Build quality. It's better than Dayton Audio stuff from Parts Express. On par with Polk, probably. The front baffle is rounded. Not great. This isn't built as well as the NUMMI BS5, but it's not built as bad as the Dayton Audio stuff. The tweeter has a little plastic housing. It's fine. There's some rough edges around here. But listen, it's $65. It's not like this is going to be incredible. The binding posts are actually pretty good. It doesn't have banana clip receptacles like vertically, but it's big enough that I just rammed a banana clip right through the little hole here. Held them just fine. Actually held them very well. Okay. Overall, its build quality is completely on par for what it costs. Soundstage Imaging, surprisingly fantastic. What's Up Danger off of the Into the Spider-Verse soundtrack. At the beginning, there's a kind of like a horn, like at the beginning of Hunger Games. Or what's that movie where crime is okay for like 24 hours? Everybody runs around and murders each other. The Purge. So it sounds like the horn from the beginning of The Purge at the beginning of that song. And it was very wide and tall. Wherever I May Roam, Metallica. At the 14-second mark, there's a out of the right speaker. It came way right, depending upon your boundary reinforcement, i.e. the rear wall, the side walls. If they are consistent, this speaker can be very good at Soundstage and Imaging. Rooster by Alice in Chains off the MTV Unplugged record was very deep. I heard the size of the room. I was very impressed. Center imaging was exceptional as well. The Chain, Fleetwood Mac, off of Rumors. It's a very popular record. Stevie Nicks was locked dead center. Cool thing about these speakers is they can pull that old disappearing act on you, which means all of a sudden it doesn't sound like the music's coming from the speakers. It just sounds like it's coming from a cohesive location, oftentimes in front or to the rear of the speakers. Very good. Because these things are so small, they can disappear very quickly, even if you have them closer to a wall, because in comparison to the size of the speaker, even if it's not super far from the wall, it seems far from the wall for the speaker because it's a little speaker. Anyway, Soundstage and Imaging, I was very surprised with. Bravo. Good job, Moukey. Let's talk about bass. Now, what can you expect out of a $65 speaker or a $70 speaker? You can't expect it to have great bass, can you? No. But you can expect it to have maybe pretty decent bass. And in this case, it has some pretty decent bass. Intergalactic Beastie Boys. There is a lot of extension, but also a lot of punch at the beginning. Surprisingly, these speakers did a really good job of the punch. Now, of course, they didn't extend very deeply, but they weren't embarrassed at all. At all. Highway to Hell by AC/DC, the bass drum on that song is very tight. So if you listen to that song and the bass drum kind of sings, thum, dum, dum, if it seems real thick, that means there's some boost in the bass. Actually, this is very tight. The bass, from a frequency response, the bass on this speaker is actually really neutral. And because it's very neutral, it actually rolls off very smoothly. So while you're not going to get the presence of the ultra deep notes, you can still kind of hear them a little bit because the roll off is very smooth. Narcissistic Cannibal, Korn at the 1 minute mark. There's a doo-doo. Couldn't even hear it. Didn't even know it was there, but speaker's starting to roll off at 60 hertz. That note is probably low 30s, if not high 20s. So it's no surprise there. But overall, I'm quite pleased with the amount of bass that's coming out of this $65 bookshelf speaker. Let's talk about mid-range. Midrange. Hello by Adele, one of my favorite songs. She's got a beautiful voice. Midrange was, again, surprisingly good. The upper registers of Adele's voice, especially around the 1 minute and 15 second mark, when she says 1,000 times. Anyway, a lot of times on some speakers it can get very resonancy-y. There can be some resonance there. Surprisingly, it didn't happen on this speaker. The mid-range on this speaker is very detailed. So the top half of the mid-range is pretty darn good. A lot of clarity, a lot of detail. The speaker is holding itself together enough that there's not any weird resonances going on. The lower half of the mid-range isn't as great. Rooster, MTV Unplugged, Alice in Chains is the artist. Vocals, Lane Staley, a little bit thin on the vocals, and that's going to be an overarching theme for this speaker. Top half of the mid-range is good. Bottom half of the mid-range, not so good. Not terrible, but just not good. This is not a warm, buttery speaker. There is some bass punch, and then there's a lot of detail. But acoustic guitars seem very detailed, but not necessarily as full as I've heard on other speakers. But again, we are talking about a $70 speaker here, $65 speaker. All in all, mid-range is pretty good. Also, Redemption Song, Bob Marley. Again, acoustic guitars. I almost said acoustic. Acoustic guitar. Acoustic guitars, very clean, very detailed. Even the reverb from the interior of his guitar, it's very good. Surprised again. Lower mid-range, a little bit thin, but that's fine because I'd rather have more detail and not enough fullness than more fullness and veiled detail. Anyway, let's talk about treble. Treble. All right. Probably the most standout part of this speaker. Now, it's not perfect by any means. Centerman. The 16th notes. More than anything, they are clear and very much apparent. But it is not, far and away, the best treble I've ever heard. It is a bit hot, a bit spicy, if you will. The hi-hat sounded a little, well, just like, think about like throwing a drop of water on a hot skillet. You know, real quick, brief. Although cymbal decay was kind of okay on the Weezer version of the Africa cover of Toto's Africa. The cymbals were a little briefer than some of the other speakers I've heard. Also, the percussion, the snare drum, came forward a bit. So what I'm saying is the treble is elevated, Also a bit brief, and also runs a bit hot, a bit spicy, like a jalapeno, habanero. Uninvited, Alanis Morissette off the MTV Unplugged record, the piano. I'm not very good with piano. Very, in your face, kind of shakes you a little bit in your face because it was pretty pronounced. Again, the treble here is apparent, elevated a bit, hyper clear for a speaker of this price range, but a little bit unbalanced with the rest of the sound signature. It's still okay. Still okay. Overall, treble is very clear, very present, lacks a bit of control. It's a little bit unrefined, a little unruly at times. What are my final thoughts? Final thoughts. This is by no means a perfect speaker, but at $65 or $70 respectively, it's about as perfect of a speaker as one will get. Great detail and clarity, really unrivaled. Sony SSCS5 is going to do it better, but sometimes that thing's $150. Sometimes I think it's even more than $150 now. A little bit of resonance in the cabinet on the bass on certain notes. So that cabinet starts to radiate. If you're going to use these as a rear surround, or you're going to mount them on the wall, you may want to put those little foam circle things that you can put, I don't know, a planter. You can stick them to the bottom of a planter so it doesn't tear up your countertop or what have you. Maybe you want to get some of those, put them on the corners, and then hang it on the wall, because that cabinet is going to vibrate, so it's not braced super well. And again, at $65, so it's probably not going to be braced well. That cabinet's going to start, so get some foam things on it. Otherwise, it's going to on your back wall. This speaker also likes to be a little bit below 75 dB. Depends on where you're at in the near field. 75 dB or less, this thing is pretty good. Once you get above 75 dB, it can get a bit shouty. If you're away from the speaker and you have some stuff going on in your room, some of that shoutiness is mitigated, but it's not because of the speaker. It's really because there's just stuff in your room and it's starting to do a little bit of room treatment, even if you don't mean to. Treble's a bit hot. Lower volumes, it's not that big of a deal. Higher volumes, it starts to become shouty. I didn't crack this thing open to take a look at the crossover, or if a crossover even exists. I think there's probably one in there, because this is a 6 ohm nominal speaker. So I think there is probably a crossover going on in here. What I don't think they did is bring down the efficiency of the tweeter to match the efficiency of the woofer. The tweeter, the treble, is just a little bit elevated above the rest of the sound signature. If one is so inclined, this could be a fun little project, because it already sounds good. It sounds really great for the price. If one wanted to get in there, brace the cabinet up a little bit more, take a look at the crossover, maybe change the components, maybe put a resistor in line with the tweeter circuit, bring the treble down just a couple of dB, maybe get it more in line with the woofer. This thing could be a real sleeper, real nice speaker. Fun little project for you and the kids. No brainer for a budget surround, budget desktop, or you want to put some speakers up in your kids' room. You don't care whether they get wrecked or not. These remind me of kind of a mini Yamo S803, but actually a little bit less U-shaped than that. This is a really good speaker for $65 or $70. Tiny, so this thing lives on a desktop, lives as some surrounds for your home theater, or can even be the main speakers in a small 2-channel system in a maybe smaller room or a larger room if you don't like to listen at loud levels. 75 dB and below is really where this speaker is pretty good. Anything above that, it starts to kind of fall apart. Not literally, but the sound starts to fall apart. It may be a blatant ripoff of the Polk T15, but they couldn't sound more different. The T15, and it makes sense that they would rip off the T15 because it is one of the best-selling speakers on Amazon, the Polk T15. Thousands of very good reviews. This thing is so much clearer than the T15. T15 is completely veiled in comparison, and I think it has mostly to do with the tweeter, because the tweeters are quite different. Tweeter in the T15 is a 3/4 inch tweeter. They're both soft domes. The Moukey has a 1-inch soft dome tweeter and a bit of a protuberance around the tweeter. So I don't know what that's doing. I don't care what it's doing because it sounds much better than the T15. So if you're in the market and you're even considering the Polk T15s, don't. Buy the Moukeys instead because they're going to be cheaper and they're going to sound much, much better. If you want to support the channel, you can sign up for Patreon. Patreon.com/CheapAudioMan. Every Sunday night we have Patreon-only Zooms. We also have a Patreon-only Facebook group. You can also sign up for Amazon Music for free. It's high-res music for free. It's the least expensive way to get high-res music. If you're a Prime member, it's only $7 a month. But if you sign up for a trial, you get 3 to 6 months of music for free, maybe. And you get free Disney Plus for 3 or 4 months. Maybe. I can't remember. It changes a lot. You can also use my affiliate links. Most of the links in the description, if not all of them, are affiliate links, which if you buy the Moukeys, I get a commission. It doesn't cost you any more though, so it's a great way to support the channel without having to give me money out of your pocket. So don't binge watch anything. Binge listen on your new Moukey $65 or $70 bookshelves and fill your soul with happiness. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.